Welcome to Secret Story, Chapter 1. Kate and her husband Alan lay sound asleep in their bed. The sounds of morning eagerly crept through the cracked window and caused Kate's eyes to flutter open. She took in a deep breath and let it out slowly. She enjoyed spring mornings. They were her favorite. She had planned to get up early, see her husband off to work, and later plant flowers in her garden. She turned and looked at her husband. He was handsome. His body was fit from years of competing in triathlons. He didn't have as much hair as he used to, but she adored the shape of his bald head. That along with the tattoos and beard made him one hella man. She knew it was only a matter of time before he'd be giving her a serious morning workout. Alan, he grinned, good morning, babe. I love you, babe, he said just before pulling out and going into the bathroom for his shower. Since he loved to take longer showers, she got out before him. She stood in front of the large mirror and looked at herself. Once upon a time, she was a full-figured woman with amazing curves. She was down nearly 15 pounds, and though she still looked amazing, she had loved her thickness. She had not lost weight because she was trying, her appetite wasn't there. Alan stepped out of the shower. His body glistened with beads of water. He saw her looking at her reflection. He walked up behind her. You're beautiful. You're just saying that. She joked. She knew Alan loved her. They had met at a race fundraiser. He was amazed at how she kept pace with him and finished a few minutes after that he approached her and asked her out. She knew he was younger than her. She didn't take him seriously, but after she kept seeing him at different events, they ended up dating and later getting married. You know I mean it, I'm going to get dressed and start breakfast. Just coffee and avocado toast for me, she said. When Kate went into the kitchen, she saw Alan dressed in a pair of jeans and a football jersey. On Fridays, he typically dressed down and rode his motorcycle to work. You look handsome, she said as she touched his face. Hoping we make a run for the Super Bowl this year, he smiled. He was from Orlando and wearing his Bucks jersey would often spark a great amount of friendly ribbing at work since most of his coworkers were Carolina fans. I'm sure they will, she replied. She wasn't into sports but did love the joy of watching him get excited when he watched football on television. I'm going to head out. Are we on for dinner tonight or should I grab something? We're good. She walked with him out into the garage. The door opened. They saw a moving truck parked out front at the house that was vacant next door. Looks like we're finally getting a new neighbor, he said as he rolled his motorcycle out onto the driveway. She nodded. Looks like. The engine roared. He placed his helmet on and moments later, he was cruising down the street. She turned and headed back into the garage to gather the materials she needed to work in the garden. She went out to the front of the house, set several colorful potted plants down, left, and returned with a bag of soil. As she worked in the garden, her mind on her last doctor's visit, she heard a car roll up and park right in front. She looked up. The car door opened and she saw a woman exit the vehicle. Hi, I hope you don't mind me parking in front of your house. The movers are blocking my driveway right now. Kate smiled. The woman was attractive, had to be in her late 20s with flawless brown sugar-colored skin. Long black hair styled in a 1970s flip, she wore ripped skinny jeans that and a football jersey that was cut to, which had a belly ring, and she also wore colorful African waist beads. Oh, it's fine. I don't own the road, Kate joked. The woman smiled. I'm Brianna, my friends call me Bree. I'm your new neighbor. Nice to meet you. I'm Kate, is it just you? Married, any kids? Bree laughed. Oh God no, it's just me. Wow, as pretty as you are, you should be able to find a guy that would love to be a husband and father. I tried that. I moved here to be with a guy who I thought wanted those things, but after he kept questioning my value, I finally left. Anyway, I won't keep you. I see you're into gardening. I'll have to get you to help me add some appeal to my curb. I can do that. You should come by tonight and have dinner with us. My husband will be here later. I might do that, thanks, Kate. Oh, no problem. I'll see you later. She waved and walked to her new home. Kate smiled. Bree reminded her of spring mornings. She was a breath of fresh air. Chapter 2. Bree walked into her spacious closet as she spoke on the phone with her mother. Mom, I am fine. You have no idea what it was like putting up with Demetrius's crap, she huffed. Every time I looked around, he was constantly reminding me that he didn't need me for anything, so, I left. You know how some men are. He was probably just saying that to test you. Well, I suppose he shouldn't have played games. Besides, I left a perfectly good situation down in Tampa to move here to be with him. That should have been proof enough. So, his number will stay blocked. You sure are one stubborn child. I wonder where I got that from. Ya daddy. Bree laughed. I have to get some stuff, Mom. I love you and I'll probably go next door tonight. I didn't cook and I am hungry. Alright, baby, love you. As soon as the phone call ended, she received another call from an unknown number. Hello, her sweet voice sounded. Hey, whatcha doing? Her eyes nearly rolled out of her head. Demetrius, what are you doing? Just calling to see if we can talk. I'm busy. Busy? Yeah, I just bought a whole house. Nobody told you to leave here. She laughed. No, but you sure didn't act as if you wanted me there, and it took me buying this house for you to start calling me to work things out. Bree, come on, I have to go. She ended the call and placed the phone in her back pocket. He must think somebody crazy, she said as she picked up some clothes off the floor and hung them. Bree had finished most of what she had wanted to accomplish in her home. She decided to head to the store to buy a bottle of wine for her nice new neighbor that invited her to dinner. She ended up at the store browsing through the aisle of wines. Her hands with pretty purple nail polish would lift each bottle as she read the alcohol potency and flavors. She was so engrossed in making her choice that, as she sidestepped to move down the aisle, she ran into a man. I'm so sorry, she said as she looked to her right and saw the attractive bald man with blue eyes wearing a football jersey. No problem, he replied as his eyes stayed fixed on her. He smiled. She returned the smile. I see you're a Bucks fan. His face lit up. Yeah, I'm from Orlando. Are you a fan? Well, not exactly. I'm from New Orleans originally, so you know our teams are division rivals. He chuckled. That's right. I was a little salty when y'all beat us and went to the Super Bowl, but y'all wanted it more. He nodded. That's nice of you to say that. How'd you end up here? She sighed. It's a very long and uninteresting story, but I'm here now. She smiled and bit her lip. I'm trying to find a bottle of wine for my new neighbors. They invited me to dinner. He nodded and smiled. You would happen to be Bree? Yes. How'd, my wife called and told me to get wine because we were having our new neighbor over tonight. That's crazy, right? He nodded. Small world. He picked up a bottle of red wine, Pinot Noir. She loves this one. Then I'll pay for it and see you two later tonight. Nice meeting you, he said. He shook his head. He had not ever cheated on his wife or ever had thoughts of doing so, but lately. He sighed and quickly thought of other things. Chapter 3. As Alan slept, his mind wandered to a place that he tried to avoid. He dreamed that Bree, he loudly. So loudly that he awoke grabbing at the sheets that he looked over to his right and Kate was already gone. He took a deep breath. He reached for his cell phone and pulled up Bree's social media account and looked at several pictures of her. He closed his eyes and remembered her smile and her body. As Kate sat in the passenger side of Bree's mid-sized SUV, she laughed at the funny stories Bree told about her ex-boyfriend Demetrius. I was like, if you don't go sit down somewhere, sir, how are you asking a grown-ass woman already taking care of herself, what she brings to the table? Where they do that at? Kate laughed. That's hilarious. Alan wasn't like that at all. I think the good ones know what a woman they want brings to the table and they don't question her value. Period. Kate laughed. Period. After their grocery shopping trip, they ended up back at Bree's place. Kate was amazed at how much Bree was able to accomplish. You've got a lot done. It wasn't hard. I only had a few things, mostly clothes and shoes. The rest I bought from the furniture store right before I moved in. She nodded. Still, it's amazing that you're so focused and you know what you want. Yeah, I've had time to figure out what I want. What about you and Alan, any kids? I have a daughter. She lives in Paris with her boyfriend. Alan doesn't have kids. I'm a lot older than him. Bree nodded. Oh, okay. Kate saw a box on the corner of the countertop. Looks like you missed a box. She grabbed it and looked inside. Oh, her face blushed red. Bree laughed. Girl, I was looking all over for that box in my closet last night. I was this close to driving to Raleigh and my ex. Oh God, glad you didn't have to. Me too. He's so freaking annoying, but he does have SA1, girl. Kate laughed. I know what you mean, Alan is pretty good. Oh really? She smiled. Oh yeah, sometimes, I can hardly keep up with him. I've been considering having someone help him. Bree's eyes widened. I would have never let Demetrius anyone. Not when the is good. I think if there are boundaries and expectations set, then it's fine. I'd rather have control over the situation. Bree nodded. And what did Alan say? She laughed. He was slightly shocked, appalled even. I can imagine. I can tell he's attracted to you. Me? Kate nodded with a huge smile. Yes, you're gorgeous. She smiled. Ah, I don't know why, but I'm oddly flattered by that. They laughed. I'm serious, though, would you consider it? Bree thought about it. Alan was attractive. He was 7 years older than her and was smart. Plus they had similar interests. I know what you're thinking, and trust me, he's blessed and he knows what to do with it. You won't be disappointed. Bree nodded. I'm intrigued. I just don't know. Like how often and what will people think if they saw him coming in / out of my house? We're all friends and you can come to our place if that makes you more comfortable, and it can be as many times as you and Alan decide. Kate nodded. Bree nodded, with no attachments. It could work. She smiled. Okay. Kate hugged her. Thank you. Chapter 4. After a week of stewing in his feelings, Alan found Kate in the kitchen reading, I love you. She turned to him. I know. Are you sure this is okay? He asked, because I don't want to hurt you. I'm fine with it. He nodded. So tonight? He asked as his eyes covered her with concern. She nodded. I'll have her come over and I'll find something to do. She walked over and touched his face. You don't know how much this means to me and how much this will help our relationship. His eyes narrowed. He didn't understand how another woman would help, but he was willing to take one for the team. That night, Bree went over to Kate and Alan's home. Kate hugged her. Come in. Alan nodded and smiled. She returned the smile. Kate looked at them both. Let's not pretend we don't know why this gathering is taking place. There's no need to feel awkward. I'm going to go hang out in my office. You two feel free to go upstairs and have as much fun as you want. She smiled and left. They stared at each other awkwardly at first. Bree chuckled. Do you want to drink some shots or wine to get in the right headspace? He laughed. Maybe a glass of wine. He grabbed a bottle and 2 glasses and they went upstairs to the guest bedroom. He poured a glass of white wine. Here you are. Thank you. She sipped. So, what do you think about this? He chuckled. At first, I was upset. Then I realized that Kate was serious and her condition has slowed her down. If she trusts you, then I trust her judgment. Bree smiled as she moved closer to him. It helps that I'm kind of cute, right? She joked. You're gorgeous, he said, blushing. She placed her right hand on his cheek. He smiled. That was nice. She looked into his eyes. He smiled. The temperature in the room increased rapidly. he couldn't help but appreciate how much his wife cared about him. She was always thinking about him, despite what she was going through. He loved his wife and he also enjoyed Bree. It was perfect. She lived right next door and his wife's hand picked her. He stopped and they shared a gaze. What was next, they both thought. She smiled. I should go now, right? You can stay. I'll just go check on Kate and be right back. The bathroom is down the hall on the right. She nodded and watched him leave the room. Alan went downstairs and found his wife in the main bedroom fast asleep. He smiled. He had been 31 when he'd met Kate. All of his friends had said he was insane for marrying a woman 10 years older than him, but he hadn't seen age. He'd seen her spirit and how she loved and cared for people. He smiled and left the room. Alan went back upstairs and found Bree in the bed. How is she? She asked. Sleeping. Yeah. She looked down into his eyes and had a sweet look on her face. She smiled. Alan, 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 I love your. Yeah. Show me how much you love it. When morning arrived, Alan stretched and turned to his left and saw Bree lying next to him. Last night did happen, he thought. Alan loved morning. Her head turned. Good morning, she said as her hand reached back to touch his handsome face. You like that? Yeah, feels good, keep doing that. He smiled. Kate was in the kitchen when Alan entered. He looked fresh and vibrant. She smiled. I take it last night went well. He could only smile. You don't have to give me all the juicy details. I'm just happy that you had a good time. He had had more than a good time. What are we doing today? He asked as he grabbed a plate and fixed him some breakfast that was sitting on the stove. I'm going to help Bree in her yard for a little while. Then we can go catch a movie or something. He nodded and hesitated. How often am I allowed to do this? She smiled. As often as you two decide. She kissed his cheek. The reality is, Alan. My just not where it used to be. I'm here for you in everything else. Even for an occasional, but you and Bree can enjoy each other. He nodded and had a huge smile inside. Sweet, two women to enjoy. He sat peacefully and ate. Bree had just gotten out of the shower. Her cell phone sounded. She looked and saw a strange number. Hello? Hey. What are you doing? Demetrius asked accusingly. She rolled her eyes in aggravation. I'm getting out of the shower. Why you didn't answer your phone last night? Sir, we are not together. And I thought I told you not to call me. He sucked his teeth. You're being unreasonable. Well, then just call me unreasonable, she said before ending the call. She immediately called her carrier and got her number changed. Later, she ended up outside in her yard where she met Kate. Hey, I tried calling you but your number wasn't working, said Kate with concern. Oh yeah, I got it changed. My ex kept calling me. Asking me where I was last night. Like sir, you need to mind the business that pays you. Kate laughed. She rather enjoyed Bree's demeanor and lively dialogue. It made her feel like she had a younger cool sister. So I heard you and Alan had a good time. Bree blushed. Did he tell you everything? No. I just assumed because he was in quite a pleasant mood this morning. Bree smiled. At first when you asked me to do this that I was like. She must be crazy, but I'm glad you did because, baby, Kate smiled, I did mention that he was good. Indeed you did. They worked in the front yard for a while. They did 2 flower beds along the front of the house. Added some shepherd's hooks and green potted plants. Alan met them outside with some freshly made sweet tea. I brought you two something to drink. Thanks, they replied. He and Bree shared a look for a moment. We're headed to the movies later if you want to join, he offered. Sure. I can buy the popcorn. He smiled. No. It's my treat. He smiled. Then it looks like the 3 of us have a date. After the movies, the 3 went for ice cream. As they waited for their order to be prepared, they chatted. A man in his 30s approached. "Alan and Kate, how are you?" They looked up. "Josh, hi, we're good," they said almost at the same time. Josh stared through his glasses at Bree. "And who is this lovely lady?" he asked. Alan looked at Bree and then Josh. "This is our friend and neighbor Bree." She reached out her hand. "Nice to meet you. So you bought that house next door?" She nodded. "I did. Looks like I'll have to pay Kate and Alan a visit more often now." "Calm down, Josh," said Kate, "the girl isn't looking to be harassed." "Come on, Kate, it won't be harassment, just getting to know." Bree smiled. "I'm already taken, but thanks." He nodded. "I'll still visit." "Taken today, free tomorrow." "Things happen." He smiled. Their order was ready. Kate and Bree walked to the counter and grabbed the ice cream. Josh looked at Bree's. "Now that is something I can get into." Alan eyed him. "Give it a rest, Josh. She already said she wasn't interested." Josh nodded. "I'll see you at work Monday." "All right. Have a great night." "See you later, Bree." She smiled and waved at him before they left. They ended up back at the house in the kitchen. Alan showed Bree his nature photo portfolio. "Oh wow, Gatlinburg, I love it there," Bree said as she looked at the pictures of the Smoky Mountains. "You've been?" "Yes, it was a long time ago with my parents. We stayed at the resort in the mountains. I would love to go back. We should go, the three of us. You two can take pictures and I could relax in the hotel," said Kate with a smile. "We should. We could go in the fall." Alan nodded. "I'll work on that." Kate stretched. "Well, I'm going to rest now." "Oh, let me get out of here." "Nonsense, stay, you two keep looking at pictures." "I'm fine." She left. Bree and Alan shared a smile. "Thank you." He chuckled. "Sorry about that." "It's okay, I thought it was so." He smiled. "Really?" Bree had just left Kate and Alan's home on her way back to her place when her phone sounded. She had just received a text message from her friend Nicole that lived down in Tampa. "Girl, please call your mother." Bree responded. "LOL, I will." Bree had gotten her number changed and purposely didn't give it to her mother because she knew she was working diligently to help Demetrius. And even though Bree had a soft spot in her heart for him, she was happy being free. Alan was handsome, intelligent, and thoughtful. She knew she wasn't ready to let that go. She smiled as she entered her house. Life was good. Chapter 6. Over 2 weeks, Alan and Bree were together nearly 5 times a week. He was with Kate once. It happened that on April 24th, Bree informed Alan that she would be on her period for the entire week. He was sad, but he understood. He had hoped Kate would be up to the challenge. The last few sessions he had with her were short. He had gotten used to pulling all-nighters with Bree. He was in his office working from home on a Tuesday when Kate walked in. "Are we going to do the pool party at the end of May?" Josh called and asked. Alan was annoyed. Josh had bothered him about Bree for 2 weeks asking questions about her. Alan didn't want to appear jealous, so he did his best to ignore him. He nodded. "I suppose so." Kate grinned. "You don't want him getting close to Bree." Alan remained silent. She walked over to where he sat. "I understand. I like her too, for you." Alan sighed. "Are you sure you're okay with this?" he asked. She smiled. "I'm sure." She kissed his forehead. "I'll be in the garden," she said before leaving. Alan picked up his phone. He had taken several pictures of Bree when they went to Hanging Rock State Park. He smiled at the one of her kissing his. He remembered that outing. It was so much fun. They hiked for hours and later took an entire memory card of shots on the trail. The best part was them sneaking off to a quiet area and having a quick session. That was a great day, Alan thought as he smiled. A whole week without being with Bree. He sent her a text message. "How are you?" She replied, "I feel like crap. I miss you. I hope you feel better." Thanks, babe. He smiled. Immediately he Googled period comfort food items. He planned to go pick up some stuff for her after work was done. After work, Bree went home and took a warm shower. She went to the living room and crashed on the sofa. Her doorbell sounded. She stayed on the sofa hoping that it was possibly just a delivery, but the doorbell sounded again. She rose to her feet slowly and walked down the hall to the foyer and answered. Her face frowned, the door opened and she stood with her hand on her hip. How did you get my address? She asked as she saw Demetrius on her porch holding flowers. You're not even going to invite me in, I came from Raleigh. She stepped aside and he walked in. He looked around, this is nice. I got these for you. He handed her the vase with a mixture of colorful flowers. They walked to the living room and she set them on the coffee table. She turned to him. Her face a scowl. The only reason why I let you in my house is that I didn't want to cause a scene outside with all those nice people sitting in their yards. What part of we're done, aren't you understanding? He sighed, I'm sorry. What else do I have to do to prove it? He looked at her with sad eyes. I realize that I do need you. I miss you. I want you to come back, please. You want me to beg? He walked up to her. He looked down into her eyes. Come on baby, I know you miss me. She sighed, I have a home. You can keep it. Just rent it out. She scoffed, I already left my entire life in Tampa to be with you in Raleigh. I just found another job here and you want me to do it all over again? He sighed. I just want my woman back. Can you at least think about it? I promise you this time I'll do better. Come for a month. I'll pay for your gas to drive back and forth, just at least let me show you. She pushed him back, I'll think about it, but right now you have to leave. Seriously? Yes. Seriously. She walked him to the door and let him out. When are you going to let me know something? I don't know, in a couple of weeks. He nodded, okay. He kissed her cheek and left. She grunted. She turned and saw Alan outside. She waved before turning and going back inside. As Bree walked back to the living room, her mind replayed Demetrius's words, come home, let me prove to you. Her thoughts were quickly interrupted by a tapping sound on the patio door. She walked over and saw Alan standing outside holding something in his hands. She opened the door, hi. He stepped inside. I got you this, he said as he handed her a red gift bag. She kissed his cheek. Thank you, she replied as she looked inside. Immediately her face shined. There was chocolate candy, a heating pad, and a box of orange tea. This is so sweet. She smiled. She opened a piece of chocolate and walked over to the sofa. How's Kate? Fine. She was reading in her office, he replied as he sat next to her. His mind was on the guy he saw leaving her home moments ago. He cleared his throat. She looked over at him with a grin. He was my ex-boyfriend. Alan nodded. So what did he want? Just for me to move back with him. I hope you told him to off. She chuckled. He placed his hand on her. You just bought this house and you have a life here. He's only coming around because he sees how well you're doing without him. She nodded. You're right. He smiled. I've missed you. What if someone sees you leaving here in the morning? I'll leave out the back door. She stood up. Let's go to bed. Demetrius lay in his bed. He had thoughts running around wildly. He had missed his girl. He missed having her lie next to him. Chapter 7. A beautiful morning, his cell phone alarm sounded. He stretched, trying to wake up fully. He looked over to where Bree lay peacefully and smiled before leaning over and kissing her cheek. I have to go, babe, I'll call you later. She responded with sleep in her voice. Okay babe. He left out the patio door. As he was headed through the fence of his backyard, one of the neighbors, Jenna, was out walking her dog. Now Jenna lived a few doors down from Kate and Alan across the street. She was always trying to get Alan to go into her home whenever Kate was away or her husband Norman was on the road. She pinched her thin lips together and she shook her head as she witnessed Alan leaving Bree's house that time of the morning. I wonder if Kate knows about this, she thought. She was determined to mention it to her later that morning, as Bree was headed to her car dressed fashionably in a yellow pencil skirt and a fitted black blouse with yellow stilettos. Jenna saw her as she posted up in the driveway. Bree had only seen her in passing and she always spoke to people. It was part of her southern upbringing. She smiled, "Good morning." Jenna rolled her eyes and pointed her finger, "I don't know who you think you are." Bree gave her the stank eye, "Ma'am, it's too early in the morning for you to get cussed out." Jenna huffed and walked away. She dragged her poor little dog along the path as she shuffled off. Bree got in her car. "Lord, hold my tongue," she said as she started her vehicle. She couldn't believe she was catching heat already. It was 8:30 when Alan stepped outside wearing a nice gray suit. As he unlocked his car, Jenna walked up. Her face was a canvas of bright colors. Alan wasn't one for overly done makeup. He had to catch himself from being startled when she spoke. "Alan, babe, how are you?" She smiled with bright red lipstick that he nodded. "I'm fine. Headed to work?" "Oh yeah, right. I won't hold you up. I just wanted to mention Norm will be gone a few days next week. I know Kate said she had to be in DC next week." Alan's eyes nearly popped. Yeah. Just stop by if you get lonely." "I should be fine. But thanks." "Is it because you'll be sneaking around with that little?" Alan eyed her with contempt. "Little what?" She shrank back. "I'm just saying, if you're going to cheat on your wife, might as well do it with your own kind." Alan scoffed and thought, "Even if I was drunk and desperate." "You know what, Jenna, in the words of a friend, have the day you deserve." He got in his car and drove off. She was shocked. She wasn't a bad-looking woman, sure a little worn around the edges, but as far as she was concerned, she still had it. The truth was, she had it, but it was long gone. Nights of drinking hard liquor and smoking cigarettes gave her an unpleasant odor. Also, she spent so much time minding other folks' business, that she had no time to take care of her own. Kate walked out. Jenna perked up. "Hi there, Kate." "Oh God, here we go," Kate thought. Jenna was constantly attempting to bombard Kate with the daily goings-on in the community. She wondered how she knew about everyone else, but didn't know one town over her husband had a woman with 2 kids he cared for when he was supposedly out of town on the road. Jenna gave a huge toothy smile. Her teeth were stained with lipstick. Kate was about to tell her, but Jenna just cut her off. "I'm worried about you and Alan." Kate chuckled. "Alan and I are fine." "Are you sure?" She reached for Kate's hand. "I saw him leaving that girl's house this morning. And it was super early too." Kate sighed as she pulled her hand away. "I assure you that I'm well aware of what goes on with my husband." "Can you say the same?" Jenna scoffed. "I don't know what you mean by that. But Alan and I are fine. Trust me. Now, try focusing on the things that are of your concern." "Well, all right." Jenna nodded and strutted off. Alan sat behind his desk staring at his cell phone camera roll. He had plenty of pictures of Bree. He looked at some pictures of him and Kate. He loved his wife. Kate used to want it every night, but when he thought about the last year, it was not the same as it had been. This was his new normal. He did get to enjoy 2 women. He developed a naughty grin. "I wonder if Kate would ever consider Alan my main man. It's Tuesday." "And you know what that means," Josh said with a smile. He was of average height and build. Mildly attractive, but was the kind of person who didn't know how to read the room. Which made him annoying at times. Alan put his cell phone on the desk and nodded. "Tacos, right, sure. Let me run to the restroom quickly and I'll be back." Alan left the office. Josh took a seat at his desk. He saw Alan's cell phone flash numerous times. Curiosity got the better of him. He pressed the home screen and saw several notifications with the name Melly. "I can't wait to see you tonight. I miss you. One message read. Josh grinned. He never thought of Alan as the cheating type. This was intriguing. Who was Melly, he thought. If only he could open Alan's phone and see what else he was hiding. Josh heard a sound and he quickly placed the phone as it was and stood. Are we ready? Alan nodded. Just let me get my phone and wallet. He opened his desk drawer and grabbed his wallet and later his cell phone and they left. They ended up at one of the best Mexican restaurants in town. The chips and salsa were to die for and the food was always served in huge portions. Not to mention, the staff was extremely nice.